We are about to start episode 7. Normally, in these episode reviews, I start with a recap, and then talk about the things that interested me. This works pretty well most of the time. It lets me get you up to speed on the plot while making sarcastic comments that let you in on the fact that yes, the show is still bad, which means I can spend the bulk of the video on more unique and thoughtful insights, even if they don't make up the majority of what weighs this anime down. I can't really do that with this episode, though, because I have a bit of a thesis for this episode overview. I said in one of my Guilty Crown videos that has since been taken off of YouTube that I find mediocre shows which fall short of something great to be far more of a tragedy than terrible shows that fall short of being mediocre. I'm not going to tell you that this story was almost great, but I couldn't help but notice a jump in quality as the show has gone on, and even more so, a jump in untapped potential, and I figured out why. See, lots of shows go downhill. It's a pretty common thing for a story to start out great but run out of steam, and there's a pretty simple reason for that. When a story has a strong beginning, it's often in part because it had a strong premise. For a lot of writers, you don't write a story unless you can write a good first chapter or first book or what have you. But then when you've used up all of the obvious stuff that makes your premise work, you need to come up with a way to evolve the story and keep it high quality, even as it inevitably changes over time. But the stuff that comes after it isn't guaranteed to have the same spark that made people fall in love with your story's beginning. For Skeleton Knight in Another World, however, it's the opposite. As more and more things get introduced into the story gets better and better. Not because the writer got more talented, it's because Arc is just that bad. This episode has a lot of promise, and I want you to watch this video and really think about how much better this story would be if Arc wasn't in it. Rather than starting at the beginning of the episode, I want to cover the B-plot, the story of Princess Yuriarna. She's one of the 3 royal children and the one who got sent to the Grand Duchy to pave the way for peace with the elves. Yuriarna is serious and formal. Her maid, Ferna, is spunky and kind of awkward. In spite of their different personalities, though, they clearly care about each other immensely. They make for a nice duo. We start with Yuriarna, filled with a sense of urgency, opting to go with a smaller military escort in order to get to the duchy quicker. The music is tense, and we see that someone is watching them. On the trip, Yuriarna is deep in thought. Ferna asks that she relaxes and has something to eat, but Yuriarna is too anxious. She feels something is off. See, only 3 other people know about her mission. Her father, who gave her the mission, and her 2 brothers. One of her brothers is likely someone who helped with the slave trade. Another is a hog for glory, wanting to ensure his spot on the throne. But then, all of a sudden, her carriage is attacked and crashes. There's this brilliant sense of tension that arises from most of the shots being inside the carriage. You can't see what's outside. All you can see is these 2 women, who are not fighters, trying to figure out what to do. Every scream outside is the ticking of a clock. They're sure to enter the carriage eventually. Like the characters, your mind is racing, looking for something that can be done. Then, the door opens. Ferna grabs a dagger and lunges to attack, but is cut down. The music crescendos. Caught in emotion, Yuriarna ignores her safety and dives after Ferna's falling body, only to get run through by a blade. And then, at the height of this brilliantly built tension, you get this sinking feeling that Arc's just gonna kick everyone's asses and then heal the good guys. Actually, the reality is even worse than that. See, the story till then was that Arc and Ariane were taking a shortcut through a forest to their next destination. They ran into some wolves, kicked their asses, while Arc continues to realize he needs to be smart, not strong, in order to excel. Ariane wants to take the tails as a wedding gift for Even, but Ponta runs off while she's in the process, so she waits there while he runs after Ponta. And it was only then that we got the scene where Yuriarna and Ferna were attacked, so you already knew he was coming. Arc comes in and sees that they're dead and contemplates the ethics of using revival magic to bring them back while bandits fruitlessly try to harm his back. He goes to kick their asses, getting help from the wolves from earlier as thanks for breaking their leader out of mind control, and then he decides to revive them. Once they all wake up, Yuriarna gives this big speech about how this was a miracle from God, and how they cannot let this miracle be in vain. They must complete their mission, and can we please have a story about this girl? Yuriarna is proactive, and she's proactive because she has these strong emotional reasons driving her actions. She feels a deep sense of responsibility to improve her kingdom and is willing to risk her safety to do so. She's engaged with her story, which makes us engaged. She thinks through what's going on, which makes us think it through. She has more emotional depth than Arc has shown all show, and on top of all of that, she's charismatic and can completely steal a scene when she makes a big speech. This girl is entertaining to watch, and her actions naturally lead to good content. But compare that to Arc. Arc freed a wolf leader from mind control and then got saved later by the wolves. That's good setup and payoff, but it could have happened with any protagonist, including one who actually needed the help. He's learning to be a better fighter against enemies who can't even scratch him. And Ariane, someone who has an older sister she compares herself to as a warrior, is right there. She'd be so much more interesting in that role. And when he gets back to Ariane, she gives him this smile and welcomes him back. It's subtle and intimate and well handled and communicates just how close they've grown. But it's worthless because their bond only feels meaningful from Ariane's point of view. This story can build tension, and it can do setups and payoffs. I didn't even mention how the episode concluded by bringing back the ninja girl, or how their destination was the royal capital where the king and both of the princes are, which built up tension. There are good choices here, but they're wasted on Arc, a character so static and bland that they couldn't even commit to the cliffhanger at the end of episode 6 lest his one gimmick disappear. Arc is an obligation. He's overpowered because the author wanted an overpowered character. So many of his traits are there for genre reasons and for the sake of the power fantasy, but don't interact with the rest of the story very well. The author can write compelling stuff, but whenever Arc shows up, he needs to stop so that he can start writing Arc instead. I really need to make this clear. Sure, there are problems with the story that can be chalked up to incompetence. I've mentioned plenty, but the real core reason that this story is bad is not because the author tried to make a good story but failed. The author tried to make a bad story and succeeded. If you want to watch me rip into episode 8, then like and subscribe with notifications on, and if you want to support me, you can visit my Patreon. The link is in the description.